basically, in this studio complex there's other artists, and there is a bookbinder and a printmaker, and he also does sculpture, but his name's George Matoulis, and there's a writer called Anthony Yark, and decided to do a collaboration with George because he's got a similar story to me, but in a Greek context, so born here, Greek parents coming over, and Anthony's father was Polish, so we thought we'd make a collaborative book. But with the writer, we'd have a talk, and this went on for over a year, about our parents' experiences and their journey. And I found these passports and documentation of their journey. So we individually made pieces. The writer didn't write, like, it's not illustrative. He didn't write about our images. He wrote his own poem, like a poem.
So he did the image and he did the
but we threaded his poem. It's called Europa, so Europe to Oceania. And Oceania, the title comes from, that was the ship my mother
travelled in.
Yeah. And La Bella is the name of my press, which is
the name of
the town, not just the beautiful one, which it was called the beautiful one, the beautiful one of Nicastro. And I'm not going to pronounce it. Messofa Press is basically what a mess.
Sorry, Angela.
So Anthony's text from a village in the countryside in the old world. This is basically a poem going through the book. To the factory floor, to the country roads board, to the farm, to the middle of nowhere in the new world. He made references to places where our parents lived and worked, because I told him about the clock tower in Abbotsford, in Collingwood, from the village with the clock tower, because my mum said the clock tower drove her crazy at night. She couldn't sleep. And then this is me and George did this collaborative print. So he did a colophon image of a postcard, and I did the sea with the words, and the words are based on the documentation from my parents' passports and visas. I've got them all in a box. Tolling away under slow-moving fans, tolling away under the noonday sun. And then that's one of my prints called Tricoto. That's based on, little shrines that we build up.
And that, of course, Ricordo.
Yes.
Memory. Yeah.
And crossing so much water on so many ships, the Roma, which was
it's the name of another ship.
Which was George's parents' ship, the Roma, ironically, and Hellenic Prince, which was my father's ship, and the Oceania, which was my mum's ship. And then George's memories of, the water and oil candle that they'd burn. Then I had memories of my parents playing tombola with rice grains, as my mother would say. And George said they played this card game, and these are things they played on the ship to entertain themselves over, a month journey. And we go, the lands of a new society displaced persons to create a life from nothing. And then this is another collaborative print from my parents' passports, which I have. That was my father's, and that was my mother's, and that George, and these were the stamps on George's Greek, and his parents were part of the Greek maths scheme, ICEMI. And the other thing about this book is it is handmade. It's not a commercial book. George actually sewed it all, it's hand printed, and the typesetting.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is I must say, it is a beautiful production. So to create the self in a new image, to liberate the past. And then this was that phrase I told you, miglior di così si muore, and I put it with a prickly pear because that's what we had lots of in our backyard. And to breathe afresh in new air, to renovate a life. And then I there's this story which I'm not going to tell it well because roughly there's a tomato and George's parents owned all this valuable property in Albert Park, and of course then you buy the block next door so you can grow more vegetables that you don't need, but you give them to your family and friends and whatever. And some person said, geez, these are expensive tomato. They're worth about $64 a tomato because, you know, if your father sold this land, it'd be worth millions, you know, hundreds of thousands in those days. But so I don't know the Greek translation, and that's the colophon is basically a history of the book. And
La vita nonna?
La vita nova, the new life, and that's the last sentence. Yeah. And that's a new life in Greek. So we wrote a new life in Greek and Italian.
This is what your parents came out
with. And the book was based on travelling through water with both our parents. So
that's a lovely book.
So I make artist books, but probably run out of time.
Well, this is another one. If you could. La mia prima lezione.
It's my first lesson. This is recreating.
We're not talking about art now.
No, this is, well, it is art in a way. It's
a book. Your first lesson in art, though.
No, my first lesson learning how to read and write from a migrant background, because as I said, when I started school, I didn't know a word of English. So it was for an exhibition with a response to John Howard's laws on migration and, you know, his attitude towards, political attitude. So
it's like an exercise book.
Yes, but this is printed. This is screen printed by another artist in the studio called...
No, I'm not saying it is an exercise.
No, it's... So the lines were actually screen printed laboriously by another artist called Doug Kerwin. So it's also about collaborating with other artists too. The bookbinder, screen printer, and this got my first... La mia prima lezione, my first lesson. So this is imagining, you know, on the board when the teacher wrote letters, how to write and read. And of course, ironically, I'm not writing and reading in English. I'm writing and reading in Italian because that was my first language. Anyway, as you go through, it's I'm learning to write letters. And then I learned to write words. I'll quickly go through it. So it's just, so I'm playing with the visual shapes of the letters. Anyway, I learned to write the word scusi, and then I read to write the word non, and then I learned to write the word capisco. So I'll just flick it through. And then I learned to write words. Scusi, non, capisco, niente. And then I write scusi non capisco niente, but I get the word understanding wrong. Right. Because sometimes you can understand things, sometimes you don't necessarily understand what you're taught. And then I finally get it right. Scusi, and that was, so this book was about a memory. An experience and also...
and that's comment about understanding, as you say, as well.
Yeah, comment about how education, and you might be educated, but it doesn't necessarily mean you understand what you're learning or what you see.
That's a lovely thing. And this one, I find this very interesting.
Okay. So this should be viewed as this little thing, as a small, like a sculpture. It's La Vita Continua. It's one of the stories from Calvino's Invisible City. So basically, I created these arch. You know, I once again worked with George on this because you've got to understand how hard it is to make a book this shape. And I'm going through all the 12 arches. And it goes from big, I'll just show you, to small. So the handwriting becomes bigger and the prints become smaller. And when you view it, it basically folds out to it's called a concertinable.
Right.
So you have this experience of walking around, and this came from Calvino's Invisible Cities, and I chose the continuous city, because while I was travelling and learning about different cultures and places I saw, I felt like you enter a city and you immerse yourself in it, but it doesn't really matter which city you're in. It kind of all blends in together, has one continuous place. And so I was reinterpreting basically the story Calvino wrote in one of the stories he wrote in his Invisible Cities, and my experience through about travelling and journeys and visiting cities.
Beautiful. It's such a beautifully produced.
Yeah, this was one of the books that Eliana from Exeter loved, and I carry this in my suitcase. It was just took a bit, and it was on display, and because what I'm doing, I'm also translating, visually translating other people's texts and stories. Yeah,
lovely. And this.
This is actually very Melbourne in a way. I was given a residency. I was asked if I'd like to do a residency at a fire station print workshop.
Right.
So the story in Armidale, it's called the Armidale Fire Station Print Workshop, and a group of artists saved this beautiful old fire station from being developed a long time ago, and it's running now, has studios and a fire station, and it's got a small gallery, and they got some funding from the city of Stonington, and they asked if I'd use the studio and the space to create an artwork, and I had about a 2-month residency there where I created this print, and the people from the fire station helped me print it. So the text I used, so this was, the architecture was from the fire station. It looks like it's got 2 big arches and the big red fire doors, and these things here are their printing presses. So I combined aspects of the building and the print workshop, and the text came from their archives, documentations about the workshop and exhibitions artists had there, and newspaper cuttings that they collected. So so this is basically based on the fire station and workshop, and I created a piece based on that.
And what was the inspiration of that?
This was about music as storytelling, and just using one word. There was a song in Montevideo that had the word giro, which is to go round, but I just used this one word and this all the sentence is made up of giro, 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 and what it's doing is going round, spiraling round in a space. Same with here. So I'm just creating a space for this word to go round in.
Excellent. All right. Lovely.
And that also comes from one of the madrigals. It's called Ragionando.
The madrigals as well.
Yeah. So it's all about.
Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful piece of work, I've got to say.
Thank you.
I think it's been a really remarkable career. You still producing?
Yes, one of the last works I made was a small. I think I'm working on a smaller scale, but I made this one, which is travelling in a small fruit prize. Initially, at the moment, part of that. Now I'm going to say his name wrong. Shashia.
Do
you know?
He's a writer.
Yeah. Well, there's a foundation. Yeah, and there's a foundation there, that is sponsoring this Premiero prize, and I was one of the Australian. There was 2 Australian artists invited. I was one of them,
Well done.
and it's just travelling to Rome. I think it opens in May in Rome, and then the
So you'll be
Scuola
going
Grafica
to
in
Rome?
Venice. No, I can't get to. I wish I could in May. And Florence. I'm going to try and get to the Milan opening though.
Right.
Yeah. So different workshops, and the prizes, residencies, and Fabriano sponsoring it too. So
Right.
it's going to also be on displays there. And and the text I used was from Petrarch.
Petrarch, yeah, that was.
And he wrote about his first experience. He was actually the first mountaineer, that he climbed a mountain, looked out and saw the world in a different context. And he was also the father of the ideas behind the Renaissance. It was from his writing that the Renaissance developed. So I made the story about climbing the mountains. My dream is to visit his town called Petrarch. It's a beautiful, mountainous, very popular place, not far from Padua. One day I might get there.
Maybe.
Hope
When
so.
you win the prize there.
No, I'm not going to win the prize, but it doesn't matter. It was lovely to be invited. Yeah.
That's good. And these are obviously also photos of
The
other
photos
works
I
that you-
took while I was on residencies, I refer back to, there's a lot of reference material,
Yeah.
so just things that I refer to, and in not just Italy, Spain. As I said, I've had a couple of residencies in Spain. In Spain, I was more looking at the architecture, because they've got some of the oldest beautiful church Romanesque architecture and churches there, more rather than the texts. Unfortunately, I can't speak Spanish.
Well, you can learn, you see.
I'm trying.
It'll be one. Well, I'm sure that your parents will be very, very proud of your career as an artist, and I think we've reached near the end, and thank you so much
thank
for
you.
giving us the time. I think it's important, and I think that you've highlighted that being Calabrese, I think, is a wonderful thing.
Yes.
And,
Sometimes.
oftentimes.
Yeah. Or making the best of
yeah.
being Calabrese.
All right.
That's the
And I think we'll bring it to an end. And thank you,
Okay, thank you.
very much.
Thank you, Laura.
Vincent McForney.
Yeah.
Thanks for my trusty assistant, my daughter. Thank you very much.
And thanks.